Well, hello, good morning, technically afternoon, morning really, and welcome to our latest Cardiff Life Business Club. It's a timely reflection on the charities of Cardiff and also the intersection with business. Today we'll be discussing what this year has been like when the need for charities has never been greater, and yet when the funding has never been more imperiled and uncertain. And also, yes, how businesses have engaged with our charities. We'll be speaking with Cerebral Palsy Cymru, City Hospice, Hafan and the Wallich. One thing I'd like to highlight to all charities watching this, and indeed anyone watching, is that we do offer a free page of advertising in every issue to any charity in Cardiff Life. The same applies to our magazines in Bath, Bristol and Exeter. So please do talk to us. It's our way of, we already have the vehicle, we hope the brand of Cardiff Life. It has a positioning within the city. And if off the back of that, we can then help our charities, we're absolutely delighted to do so. So please, yes, do talk to us. A few parish notices, a few things about elements we're doing next year on our awards. There's some big news on the Cardiff Property Awards. Our nominations close today at 8 p.m. Time has got truncated and elasticated for everyone, so why not close nominations at 8 o'clock? We are anyway. Please enter via the website. If you're at all struggling with that deadline, talk to us. There may be a little bit of margin at the margin, I suppose. We'll be announcing our finalists on Monday, that's the 21st of December. So even though that's effectively the Christmas week, nonetheless, we do want to announce and celebrate our finalists at that point, and our tickets will go on sale at that point as well. If you want to join the Cardiff Property Symposium for keynotes, awards, and to meet the greatest array of Cardiff professional services since those pre-lapsarian times of 2019, please take a look. And also there's a new thing. We've got a very limited number of hubs available for networking. They're a little bit like a cross between a box at the rugby in the days when we could have such things with a trade show. So it's about getting people together and networking virtually, but in a way that none of us have been able to do for far too long. Please talk to us if you wish to be involved in that. Thanks to our current sponsor roster, Marsh Commercial, Sanctuary Financial Planning, Specialist Security, TSR Legal Recruitment, Wilmot Dixon, and yes, Cardiff Life itself. Cardiff Life Awards, we had an amazing celebratory Cardiff Life Awards, which of course feature a charity category as well. We had that virtually back in July. It had been postponed from March. All our timetables for everyone just keeps being changed and so on. We're running the Cardiff Life Awards in the coming year on 13th of May at City Hall. And we believe that at that point, we will be able to run those fully in real life. If there's any prospect we can't, we'll put them back a little bit, but we're confident that we'll go ahead on that date. And it'll be as uber glam as ever, and frankly, dare I say, yet more needed after this year than any other time. It's certain to be a very special occasion with everyone once more together to celebrate the very best of Cardiff. Nominations are open now, and it's free to enter via the website. We'll be having a launch event as well, virtual, early in January when we're all back, to thank our sponsors, which I'll do now as well. Our sponsors currently include Marsh Commercial once more, Genero, Hawkins Thomas Wealth Management, Park Plaza, Regis, WSUT and Cardiff Life. It's great to see the momentum building behind the awards, which are we absolutely love them. They're just a terrific celebration of all that's best in Cardiff, and it's very much from the coolest of the indies, the charities, the arts organisations, all the way through to the larger companies, because everyone plays their part in Cardiff one way or another. Please look out also for our Cardiff Life Business Clubs next year, and particularly the new deep dive Cardiff Life Business Surgeries, which feature one company's expertise and insight. Before we kick off, I do just want to thank, as we begin to close the year, very sincerely, very, very deeply, many thanks indeed for your support for Cardiff Life. It's genuinely appreciated, whether that is editorially or commercially. We absolutely love celebrating the city, even in these tougher times, and we're determined to play our part, supporting the better year ahead for all of us, because come on, May, it has to be a better year than we've currently been experiencing. Right, to business, well, actually to charity. Please send your questions via the Q&A button at the bottom. They can be anonymous if you wish. Ideally, you'd also name your company if you name yourself individually. or just send some lovely thoughts. We're all buoyed up by the support of others, and for our charity panel today to read some of the supportive comments, I'm sure will be extremely well received. This webinar will be available afterwards on our Cardiff Life YouTube channel, and it's also being live tweeted right now by the Cardiff Life team. So let's bring forward Claire Walker first, Corporate Relationship Manager, Cerebral Palsy Cymru. Claire, good morning.
Good morning, Greg. Thanks for the invitation. Oh,
not at all. Well, thank you for accepting it and being here today. I'm sure many will be familiar with what your charity does, but just talk a little bit about the scope of the charity and your activities, please.
Oh, of course. Thank you. Yes, I will certainly do that. So we are Cerebral Palsy Cymru, but only as of May this year. We used to be Bobath Children's Therapy Centre Wales. We went with the name change in May, basically to ensure that families across Wales are able to access us a little bit more easily, i.e. Cerebral Palsy Cymru does what it says on the tin. Our mission is to improve the quality of life of children living in Wales with cerebral palsy. We do that through the provision of very specialist therapy and support for the child, for the families, and for all the support network around the child as well. Our therapists are a team of physios, speech and language therapists and occupational therapists, and their approach is very much a holistic approach to the child and very specialist. In case you aren't familiar with what cerebral palsy is, as many people aren't, and I wasn't as familiar when I started working for them, it's essentially caused by damage to a young child or baby's brain, and this can affect the child in lots of different ways. It's very much an umbrella term. So we see children who have difficulties maybe with learning, right through to the other end of the scale where they may have difficulties communicating, swallowing, eating, walking. They may have limited use of their muscles, and anywhere in between. We were started 28 years ago by a group of families for families across Wales. That's it in a nutshell.
Good, and as with you, as with our other charities, we'll also be asking you to talk about how businesses might engage with you and what they might do for you. But if you stay on camera, as it were, let's call forward Kelly Dibble, Corporate Partnerships Manager of Hafan. Kelly, good morning, good afternoon, wherever we are. Don't know.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, it probably is. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Looking forward to Christmas. I came a little bit festive today.
Very nice. Oh, can we just see a little bit more of that? Very nice. Very.
Candy canes.
Yeah, you win. I think a couple of our other panelists might be very quickly changing off. Don't worry, I'm not going to. So tell us about Hafan. It's been a high-profile charity for some time in Cardiff, but there will still be people who may be less familiar with it.
Yes, of course. So at Hafan, what we do is provide comfort, care, and support to families across Wales who have children with life-limiting conditions. So through our hospice and our broad outreach services, we try to ensure that a short life is a full life. A lot of people don't realise, but we actually support not only the child, but the whole family, mums, dads, brothers, sisters, grannies, aunties, uncles, the whole shebang. Since we opened 21 years ago now, we've supported over 700 families across Wales with our services. Sadly, like many charities in Wales, we do receive very little in the way of government funding, despite our families describing our services as a lifeline to them. It's less than 3%. So we rely very heavily on the public for their support, because we need to raise 4 million a year to do what we do at Hafan. So thanks for having us here today, because I think it's a great platform to let people know that, and also to let them know, what they can do to help if they are interested.
And we shall come on to that shortly, but thank you for that. So let's have Liz now. Liz Andrews, Chief Exec of City Hospice.
Excellent. Hello, lovely to see everyone, and lovely to be amongst, a wonderful group of charities as well. I think what we've really seen through the pandemic is a lot of charities working together in collaboration. I'm sure we'll touch on that as we talk. So it's lovely to be here today. Yes, City Hospice. City Hospice is Cardiff's local hospice. We are based in our wonderful building in Whitchurch, and you can see our gorgeous gardens in a photograph behind me.
Aren't you a bit cold, Liz? I mean,
I am a bit, but I had a very summery scene for many months, and someone said to me, I think you need to change with the seasons. So I have for today. As you would imagine, with the word hospice in our name, we provide the highest standards of care and support to people living in Cardiff who are faced with terminal and life-limiting illness. That might be someone with cancer, dementia, motor neuron disease, and other life-limiting conditions. We're also very supportive of a patient's family as well, and we provide support and counselling to loved ones of our patients. And what you'll see is around, I'd say 1,200 people every year are referred to City Hospice for care and support, and then obviously their families on top of that number. A little bit different from what you might expect from a hospice is that we're not actually a bedded unit. So if you were to visit our hospice building in the grounds of Whitchurch Hospital, you wouldn't see any beds or wards at City Hospice. Our ethos has always been to provide care and support to patients in their own homes, because that's where people tell us that they want to be and where they want to remain. And we work with patients and families so that they can have their choice of where they wish to remain as well. So a wonderful charity supporting people throughout Cardiff.
Very good. Thank you, Liz. Let's have Mike join us.
Hello.
Oh, look. He went there. Was that the only festive thing within grasping distance you could find?
No, I had this on earlier. I was just sitting down so you couldn't see.
Yeah,
I'll leave the hat off. It's a bit warm.
I'm deep. No, I'm sorry. Once you put it on, you've got to keep it on. Deeply impressed. Gosh, you're very biddable. You can take it off if you wish. So tell us about the Wallich.
So we're the Wallich. We're Wales's largest homelessness organisation, and fundamentally we believe that everyone has a right to a home, but more than that, that everyone has the right to feel safe and valued and positive about their future. So fundamentally, we kind of run on three core principles. It's about getting people off the streets, which is through our outreach services. So we run the rough sleeper services within Cardiff, but also Swansea and Newport, Bridgend and Wrexham. Keeping people off the streets, so that's a range of accommodation services. A lot of the services that we provide in the city are specialist accommodation services. So we have specialist accommodation for people with issues around alcohol dependency or substance misuse, and quite often dual diagnosis as well. So people dealing with substance misuse or mental health issues. And then hostel provision and emergency access night shelters. So that's us for the city of Cardiff. And the kind of the last bit of the jigsaw is around creating opportunities. So we firmly believe that the sustainable route away from homelessness is through employment and education. So we have employment and education programs as well that run alongside our accommodation provision, so that we can make sure that we kind of end the cycle of homelessness, the revolving door. So that's it. So we operate. We're very much Cardiff-based charity in the sense that our head office is here, but we deliver services across Wales. And in the last year, I think we helped over 10,000 people with their issues around homelessness. So that's what we do.
Thank you, Mike, and to all of your nutshell summaries. Clearly, this has been, whatever adjective we want, a pretty poor year, challenging, difficult, tough, all those things. But I want to begin on more of a positive, really. What have been the joys for you this year with your teams or the people you're aiding? Don't all rush.
Should anyone jump? Well, okay. I think you hit on that word there, Greg, as well, around the team. And for me, it's got to be that our whole team working together has been wonderful throughout this whole pandemic. And that's our staff, but also our volunteers. I'm not sure, I think for us, it seems as if we've had an even greater sense of purpose during the year. And we've all been there to support each other, because I'm sure we can say that we've all had ups and downs, and having the support of the team has been wonderful. And then in addition to that, it's the community support that we've received as well. And I know personally, when I've had a tough day, to go on to Twitter or social media and see those wonderful comments that people leave, or just those small acts of kindness have just meant the world to me as an individual, but also I think to the entire City Hospice team.
To anyone watching this, sorry, Mike, I'll come to you in a sec. I think there's a very good point there that for many people, particularly Twitter is seen as quite a sort of toxic environment, at least it can be. But the support that people get, we're all buoyed up by the support of others, as you've said. So if anyone's watching this who's a particular supporter in whichever way of any of the charities today, or indeed any charity in Cardiff, just reach out, just say it, just say thank you, just, you know, appreciation, because these are the people right here on our screen who are in the front line, and their teams and their volunteers, they're the people delivering these services, and they need buoying up like we all do in these times. So very good point, Liz. Thank you. Mike, you're about to say your joy.
I was just going to expand on Liz's point. I think that one of the really heartening things I think that's come out of this pandemic, if there's any good that's come out of it at all, has been our community response. And it's not just about individual businesses or individuals themselves, actually cross charity working as well, and lots of people kind of pulling together, and lots of support from within the third sector as well as ourselves, kind of looking outwards and trying to get business support on board, or individuals. So I think that's been a very, very positive thing, and I've had some fantastic conversations with fundraisers from different organizations who we may not necessarily and ordinarily have married up with, but that kind of free exchange of ideas and actually helping each other out. And when I've got stuff that maybe isn't appropriate for me, but I can pass it on to another charity, I've had the same back. So I think it's been it's been a really tough 9 months, but it has been a really collaborative one. So I think for all of the charities and all the businesses and the communities, I think it's that community response has been really good.
And just to that point, I'm sure as individuals, but also as organisations, you're sort of inherently perhaps more collaborative than other sectors may be. But do you think that's been accelerated in this year?
Definitely, I would say. I mean, you know, our organisation, a lot of us were put on furlough back in April, as I'm sure it's the same with you guys. I was back slightly earlier than the rest of the fundraising team to actually support our grants and trusts and major donor area, as they were, you know, trying to find COVID-related grants and trusts that they could tap into. So yeah, it was great to have an insight actually into a separate side of the organisation and help support them while kind of fundraising was on the quiet for a moment. So yeah, I think it just goes to show that everybody's, you know, helped each other, and you know, it is built bonds, I think, particularly at Hafan, between the different departments, and given us a much better understanding of what our colleagues actually do. And as a result, you know, things have started to pick up now, and it means we're a lot more flexible as an organisation.
And Claire, I can see you nodding about the building bonds and understanding team members and so on, working with teams. Any extra particular joys or individual occasions that made you think, yeah, wow, you know, one of those moments?
Oh wow! Oh, there's so many, Greg. Just from like the 2.6 challenge that happened in April for the marathon places. I mean, we raised £15,000 for that, which is, we didn't have any, we couldn't get marathon places, which is, you know, and it's always a struggle to get London marathon places, but for the community to come together and just go for it with the 2.6 challenge. But yeah, there's so many. I mean, with the charity for Mowgli street food in Cardiff city centre, and they have branches right across the UK, but their Cardiff team chose us, and what they do is they add a discretionary £1 on every bill that comes to us. And obviously the hospitality industry has been hit so hard, but then come September to have the donations come through again from all these people who are going to support local Cardiff businesses, like Mowgli Street Food. And of course, they supported so many businesses around the Cardiff area, didn't they, to go and eat it, to help these businesses out. And, you know, since July 2019, Mowgli still, despite the really tough year they've had, we've raised, you know, close to £15,000 we've had from them now. And it really is incredible. And their whole staff there, their team, they reach out to us constantly to see if there's any additional ways they can help. And it's just built into their ethos to have this sort of willingness and just all-round loveliness to want to do some good despite what's going on. All-round
loveliness, and particularly, of course, including your teams and your volunteers. Perhaps you could each talk about that, about how your teams have responded in, you know, what was initially incredibly bewildering and got no less strange throughout the year. How have your teams been in these times?
I think, you know, we can't avoid talking about technology. So, you know, I didn't have Microsoft Teams, I don't think, prior to March. And I just think you could never imagine what the possibilities that this virtual platform has actually given us. And like, don't get me wrong, I love a face-to-face. I love to go and meet our supporters and have a cup of coffee and a chat. But, you know, I've saved absolutely loads of money on petrol. I had a meeting the other day with a non-executive board director from Admiral who lives in London. That meeting probably wouldn't have happened in normal times, but because we have this technology available to us, you know, that's come about, and that's fantastic. And I think, as well as working with volunteers and organisations, businesses, you know, we've been able to connect with them, you know, on a different level this way. And for us at the Hospice and at Hafan, you know, we've been impacted by not having our children and families be able to come and stay with us. We stayed open for end of life services, but we had to put a break on our short break stays. But what we actually found was we've had more interaction from our families as we're Pan Wales because of the technology available to us. So as a quick example, we normally have a bereavement service, one in the summer, one in the winter, where we invite families who've had children who've passed away to come and remember the child and come and visit our grounds. Obviously, COVID put a stop to that. So what our team did was do a virtual event. And actually what they found was more of the families engaged with us because they were able to do it virtually. So whereas we've got families up in Aberystwyth who perhaps didn't want to come and travel to the hospice in Surrey, they could partake by doing a virtual version. And so now going forward, obviously when we're allowed, we will still have the visitors to Hafan, but we'll also offer this virtual opportunity to make sure that we're, you know, fully engaged with the communities across Wales. And I just think that in itself is such an amazing opportunity for
well, that may be, you know, one of the enduring positives is using technology differently. That it's one of the paradoxes of the pandemic that we've never been further apart and yet closer still in a peculiar way. But to your teams, tell us a little bit more, perhaps the others, about how your teams have responded, how they have coped personally, what it's meant for your volunteers in particular.
It's been really hard work. I think the thing with the team, with our teams particularly, because we run residential services, there wasn't any options for our teams to go anywhere. So the priority for us as an organisation has always been to keep the residential services open, keep the residents safe, and to keep the team safe. And so just the sheer logistics of actually running those kinds of facilities. The teams have been amazing, but I think it's everything else that the volunteers and the corporates and the businesses that supported us that allowed us to function. So there's always a misconception, I think, particularly when you're working with charities, that it's all about the money, and it just isn't. It's about finding those partnerships. And so I'll give you a really good example. We had when everybody went into lockdown. And a lot of the rough sleepers were accommodated in temporary accommodation across the city. One of the big concerns that we had was that whilst the guys were accommodated, some of them were accommodated where they didn't have kitchens, where they didn't have cooking facilities. We were worried about food provision. That was a big concern for us. And the response that we had from our teams, we had the guys who do our rough sleeper services came in. We had a building donated to us by Portobello Property. They gave us a building. They bought it for development, but they couldn't develop it during the pandemic, so they gave us a building. We had Antonio's TV and film catering company, who are normally out doing shoots and films and stuff in Wales and beyond. They came and parked up in the car park. We turned the entire of the building into a food store, and we had help from production companies with fridges and freezers and all kinds of stuff. And these are all kind of donated items, and people, you know, Principality gave us shelving. We had donations from FareShare, another charity, for food that we could cook. And when we took, in a very, very short period of time, we managed to turn what was an empty building and a car park into a food service, and we were doing 200 plus covers a day, and we were delivering food to projects across Cardiff and Newport. And that was only done on the goodwill of our teams, because that wasn't necessarily in their job descriptions. It was done on the goodwill of the community, and it was done, you know, not with an enormous amount of money, but just with a sense of going out to businesses and seeing what they could give to support. So if there's a message for businesses who want to work with charities, and we all have to be more creative, I think, about how we work together, it's definitely, if it's not about the money, it may well be about your resources or what you can bring to it, or your volunteers, or how we can, you know, engage your staff in these kinds of activities. So there's loads of opportunities for charities to work with business and vice versa, because there's some really creative brains in charities, and there's some fantastic creative brains in business. And if you put them all together, sometimes it's not always about the money. So that was a really good thing for us that came out for this year.
Great, and we'll come back to the role of businesses' relationship with charities in a sec. I just wanted to ask about your volunteers. That for some volunteers, I suppose I'm more thinking about in retail outlets and so on, but not solely. Some volunteers will be of an age, 60s, 70s, 80s, and so on. On their side, they may not wish to be out if they can be out in any form, and on your side, you may have the extra duty of care and so on. How have you navigated that process with volunteers who either can't or you don't wish them to be involved in your activities?
Shall I go here?
Please do, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we have 4 charity shops. Sadly, our furniture shop had to close as part of sort of the sorting out of our expenditure and cuts. And our team of volunteers that support the 4 charity shops are, you know, absolutely central to their success. But of course, Greg, as you mentioned, one of our priorities, we had to keep our volunteers safe. So it has been quite a journey to make sure that we can still run our charity shops, but in a safe way with our volunteers. They go through, they have to do sort of a quite in-depth questionnaire to make sure that they are fit and okay to volunteer with us. And obviously then we had to make sure that there were safety procedures in place, very strict ones, for our charity shops, i.e., you know, ensure they're wearing PPE, ensure that there's a screen there, perspex screening by the till area. And although I think the regulations have changed slightly on this now, ensure that any donations we receive are quarantined for 72 hours to make sure that they're going to be safe to sort through and all that kind of thing. It has been difficult because obviously our volunteers, especially and them, like you say, are of an older generation. It's their lifeline. It's where they socialise. It's where they come to meet dear friends. And you know, there's so many heartwarming stories of our volunteers making friends for life. They go on holidays together. It really is wonderful, and it has been heartbreaking really to see that they haven't got that place to go. For some 2-3 times a week to be able to do some good and socialize. And I think the regulations have changed slightly now. So those who are sort of in the 70s age group can volunteer, but obviously it really is a huge priority of ours to make sure that they are safe. But I have to say that our retail team have done a tremendous job in making sure that we can. And actually our shops have exceeded our expectations in terms of how well they've done in terms of income generation, because you'd think, are people going to want to go and shop in charity shops now? But we found that yes, they do. They love it. It is especially our flagship shop in Llanishen on the sort of Morrison's roundabout, the crossroads that goes up to Thornhill, Lisvane, Birchgrove. And it really is a hub for the community there, and we're thrilled with how they've done. It's nerve-wracking now as we go into 2021. I think they're going to be closed, aren't they? Potentially January, February, which, you know, is devastating. But overall, our volunteers have been, as always, incredible.
That's lovely to hear. I'm going to ask what I hope isn't an unfair question, specifically in that area. Do you think that perhaps increased or slightly higher level of trade in the shops than you might have expected, is that born of people wishing to support, or is it people born of people wanting, you know, bargains because they have their own financial pressures?
Yeah, I think that's a difficult one to answer. I think there is a lot of community support out there, and there's a lot of people wanting to stay local, their local high streets. I can definitely see that in our shops. I think that there is a desire to want to support City Hospice. So that's what we're seeing from our customers as well, which is wonderful. I think time will tell on the latter part of your question as to, is this about economic reasons? And yeah, I think we're all learning and adapting as we go on this, as we have all been throughout the entire pandemic. I think, you know, that's something that we have to take as a positive as well, is our ability to adapt and learn very quickly throughout all of this, sharing best practice amongst each other, with businesses as well. You know, so many people have said it, how they could switch to digital so quickly. You know, a project which was going to take 6 months to implement was done in a week. And we need to take those learnings and continue with that amount of creativity as well.
And to your point about supporting the communities, it's something we've been very aware of with Cardiff Life, is that lockdown has made everything local. We're all that much more inwardly, locally focused in all different ways, whether it's in a support environment or whether it's simply just venerating our independents who do so much to define the city and the areas of the city, even smaller than that. Let's come to your Christmases, not yours personally, but for the. What will you be doing this Christmas? In that, so you know what you can, given the strictures of the various tiering structures and so on, and looking into New Year, what will you be doing the next, say, 10 days?
Mind if I go?
Please do.
So the reason I've dressed very festive today is because normally during my job, the whole of December is all about Christmas and about the children. So at Tea Hafan, normally it's a massive hive of activity, excitement, and buzz around Christmas time. And obviously this year, it's quite different. However, that doesn't mean that the staff can't try and bring the magic in a different way. So what they would normally do is every Monday and Friday throughout December is our care team put on a pantomime, especially for the children who are staying. The reason they do it Mondays and Fridays is because our short breaks days coincide with those days. So the Monday would catch the weekend families, the Friday would catch the weekday families. So different audience every time. And I say panto in the loosest of terms. It's no new theatre production, you know, but that's what makes it all the more special. And then, so the families come and watch. We invite our corporate partners to come and be in the panto as the cast in the background, which inevitably means people in dresses, generally men, with wigs. It's absolutely hilarious. And I'm genuinely gutted that we can't do that this year. However, what the team have done is they've actually filmed the pantomime in the forest behind Tea Hafan. It's Into the Woods, Hansel and Gretel story, so that they can live stream it via Facebook to our families to watch. And then what we've done for our corporate partners who normally take part is they've sent us videos of them basically being silly in their offices or at home that we can cut in to the pantomime. So although Christmas looks a bit different at Tea Hafan, it's still very much a part of what we're about. Our Father Christmas also came in and filmed some footage for us, which he's going to be reading the night before Christmas on Christmas Eve on Facebook, which everybody can watch. Yeah, and we've just had to do Christmas, but just slightly different this year. So it's still happening.
I think that's the understatement, probably of the decade. We've had to do slightly differently this year. But has that live streaming of Hansel and Gretel happened?
No, it's on Friday at 10:30 on the Tea Hafan Facebook page. So
okay, if you could, if you fancy tweeting that and copying Cardiff Life, we'll make sure we retweet and stick it through our channels as well. Let's watch it on Friday. So for our other trio, what are you going to be doing perhaps differently this Christmas? What does Christmas look like for you?
I think for us is that it's, in terms of the care that we provide to our patients, it isn't any different. We are still doing what we have done every single Christmas and you know, week in, week out. And that's something I think to be hugely proud of as well, is that continue to deliver care and services to people when they really need it. And we can say that of all of the charities here. And that's something that we can say, wow, we did that as a team together. And you know, the whole team, meaning our supporters, our staff and our volunteers. So our nurses will continue to go out to our patients in their homes and provide the care and support that they need. They look a little bit different this year, granted, with their full PPE, but they're still going to, you know, be those wonderful, supportive and essential people that, you know, patients need at Christmas time, which is wonderful.
Very good. Claire.
Wholeheartedly agree. I think that's Liz has hit the nail on the head, and I think that's you know, the thing to take away is that however you support your charities and whatever you do, the end result of that is that we're out there delivering services for our people. The key thing for us this Christmas, same as last Christmas, same as next Christmas, is making sure that the people who use our services and need our services are looked after, and that we can care for them. We have a responsibility to them. We can make sure that their stay with us is hopefully, as well for the Wallich certainly, their stay with us is hopefully as short as possible, and we can get them into secure accommodation and their own accommodation. That's the goal. But it is about services remaining open. I think the split, I think, this year is between what happens within the projects, which is very much about making sure that we do the best that we can for residents, and what happens for us as a charity, as a fundraising business, where we're actually going out to support those frontline services, and that has fundamentally changed this year. Christmas time is always a time when people start thinking about issues around homelessness, and there's normally a lot more activity going on, particularly with our individuals and our businesses in the run up to Christmas. The things that just haven't been able to happen in the same way this year. So the Christmas parties and the quizzes and the social events. But you know, we're all trying to do things slightly differently. So we had a comedy bingo night last night, where we invited some of our business friends and partners in to do some comedy bingo with us. And we did it all virtually, and we did it all on Zoom. I think those kind of virtual events are going to be more of a feature for us going forward. And I think that it's not something that we'd necessarily have done before the COVID-19 crisis, but it's certainly something that's going to inform how we go forward as well. And I think it's about, like Liz said earlier, about dragging the learning forward and improving our offering to businesses throughout the next year and beyond.
It's the one of the deep truths for all of us, that we've all either learnt or had to learn a whole bunch of new skills and approaches. Claire, how's Christmas looming for you?
Oh gosh, well, I'm not sure how you've got any sense out of this really, because typically for fundraisers this week every year, it's just a bit like, oh my gosh, having had just this whirlwind of events and activities and rushing here and going to chat to our corporates there, or like Kelly mentioned earlier before we started, going down to the St. David's Centre to talk about the toy appeal. Literally is a hive of activity, and it's the most wonderful sense of joy usually. It has been very different this year, but I still feel a little bit like, wow, gosh, what a whirlwind it has been in a completely different way. But still equally as heartwarming, because of all of our supporters and our families, as always, have just come to the fore and said, yes, we're supporting you. Come on, let's do this. We can get through this month. One of the highlights, I think, for us was usually we hold a very sort of community-based Christmas carol concert, usually in the heart of Whitchurch and St. Mary's Church, and which is a lovely event. We delivered our first virtual Christmas concert this year, which was a blend of lovely readings of carols, obviously, that our viewers could join in with, and just lovely performances. And when I just sat there and watched it, and actually all kudos to our marketing and comms officer, Emily, and I can imagine that all the comms and marketing teams have really raised their game across all these charities this year. When it all came together, it was just so beautiful, and just to have this wonderful piece of music, and our families sent in pictures of their Christmases, and they just sort of rolled while this wonderful Silent Night music was being played, and it did bring a tear to my eye several times as I watched it, because it brings to the fore just how well, just the most wonderful community spirit that we have in Wales and in Cardiff at this time of year, and it really was special. But yes, in terms of our therapists will keep on providing therapy now right up to Christmas. and just making sure that those, I mean, the children we support are vulnerable anyway, but since the sort of pandemic, it's just come to the fore how extremely vulnerable they are, as with all our causes here today. And to still deliver what they've delivered, our therapy teams, nothing short of amazing, I think.
There's another deeper truth lurking here that in the worst of times, people show their best. And I'm sure that's been of great comfort to us all. In whichever iteration of life we have. I want to talk about the business area, about each of you in different ways, if not rely on, certainly benefit from the support of businesses. And I want to talk about if there's been any degree of perhaps reset, that the role of charities has slightly changed for businesses. It's a shift from a zeitgeist shift almost from the days of a CSR policy, which at least for some was a bit of a tick box corporate exercise, is now a sort of vital element of why companies exist and how they employ and how they conduct business. Are you seeing any element of that shift?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will do.
Yes.
Long question, one word answer. Happy days.
Yeah.
Tell us more.
Well, it's about what businesses want ultimately, and I think that we're with the exception of Liz, who's a CEO, we're all corporate fundraisers, and I think that it's kind of beholden upon us to really try and understand what the business wants and what the business needs, and it's trying to find the synergy between what you deliver as a charity and what the business actually wants to achieve with their charitable support, and somewhere between those two, the business objectives and the charity objectives for the money, there is synergy to be had and to be made. So one of our sort of ongoing relationships at the moment is with Admiral, and we're doing some learning and development programs with their graduates. Not necessarily a space that you would imagine a homelessness charity live within, but it's about understanding what the business wanted from their engagement with the organisation and actually being able to deliver upon that. So we set them a fundraising challenge. They're due to start in January. But we set them a fundraising challenge, but we set it within very particular parameters. And the graduate managers at Admiral wanted to measure the achievements of their people across a certain number of metrics, whether that's communication skills or team building or leadership or whatever it happens to be. So whenever you engage with a charity, don't think about the CSR and the back. You'll get all that anyway. It's about what it can do for your business. And actually, if you have good and productive and open conversations with the charity, any charity manager worth their salt is going to ask you, what are your challenges within your business? What are you looking to achieve? How can we help? This year, it may well be around remote learning. It may well be around staff well-being, where everyone's working from home. So, we're all thinking about this as corporate fundraisers for charity. So it's not, and it never has been, and certainly not for the last 10 years, walking around with your hat going, pop some money in here, please. It's really about delivering benefit to the business, and that's how we build longer term relationships and more sustainable partnerships. And that's how certainly we'd like to work with business and what we think that the charitable sector can do. And it's not just the Wallich, it's Hafan, it's Hospice, it's Cerebral Palsy, all of us. We're all really good at working with businesses. So come and talk to us.
I think a lot of... Sorry.
Go on, Liz.
No, I was just going to say Mike's work there around partnership, I think, is very apt. It's not about a one-way relationship here. It's about working collaboratively together and learning from each other as well. There are so many things that a business can do to support a charity that doesn't involve them giving a monetary donation at this time, if that's not what they're, is in their power to do. There is so much that they can do to help with communications, help with training, definitely. Helping us spread the word. It sounds really simple, but you've got this wonderful network that you could use to benefit our charities, and let us tell you what we do. Let us learn from each other. We all love talking about our charities. We're really, really good at that. And if you could help us to do that, to expand that to more people, ultimately we will all benefit. We hope that people won't need to use all of our services, but if they do need to use them, at least, you know, there isn't that fear factor when City Hospice calls and, you know, you've been referred to us for care. There is an expectation of what our service is all about. And that's one way that a business can get behind us and just say, we can include you on our intranet, on our staff newsletter. We'll invite you to our virtual networking event. We'll give you a slot to talk about what you do. That could be so beneficial to all of us.
Yeah, that point about helping to spread the word, there's 2 or 3 things. One is that I know there's a number of tech digital companies who that sector is very strong on tech for good, the sense of being able to do other good things. It's inherent for technologists, they're optimists, and I guess optimism is about trying to make the world better. And I'm sure either of you or other charities watching, I've heard the expression, the blatant ask. Make the blatant ask of technology companies, say, and web developers and so on, say, we need help, will someone help us? If it's not pro bono, certainly reduced rates, I'm sure will be out there. Secondly, for communication companies and marketing companies, exactly the same principle. If you've got time, your time can leverage these brilliant charities. In a very minor way, that's why I mentioned the ads in Cardiff Life at the beginning of this. We know we've got this channel, we can help you spread the word. Claire, you're going to say some more points in this area.
Yeah, it was just to add just something about perhaps the businesses out there who are struggling at the moment. It might just be that they are feeling that they can't engage with the sector at this time because they haven't quite got the capacity there. But perhaps they could just look at it about that maybe we could help each other with their survival and help each other with rebuilding their businesses. Sit down, like Mike says, have a conversation, have a cup of coffee and just sit down and brainstorm some ideas together and just think about the different ways that you could help each other. And also, you know, helping with staff engagement, like we said earlier, the well-being is such an important topic at the moment. And having a strong synergy with a charity, I think, can really help engage staff and give them motivation and keep them going. And we know that the new year is going to be a hard time. But I really feel that the third sector can aid those businesses struggling just on their road to recovery and vice versa. It's all about survival for us still at the moment, and it will be for a long time. Let's hope not, but it could be years to come that we're really going to be struggling as a sector. And I think there are businesses out there, if we thought outside the box a little bit and sat down together and think about ways that you can help each other.
Definitely. I think, you know, we're not restricted to just money. And I think there is that stigmatism around charities that, you know, well, if we support them, we've got to do fundraising. I don't get me wrong, that'd be nice, but there are so many other different things that we can do together. You know, we're going through a refurbishment project at the moment, which has been delayed somewhat due to COVID. You know, and a business local to us donated a load of furniture. Now, that just came off a conversation of somebody I knew who had seen we were doing the refurbishment. We had a chat, and it turns out he was refurbishing his office and had a load of orange box furniture, which we would have bought. And it was worth about £10,000. So, you know, you never know how you can help us, like you said, through pro bono, through gifts in kind, volunteering. You know, we don't always expect money. It doesn't have to be monetary. You know, you can support in other ways, and, you know, we'll support you guys by, you know, providing, you know, positive engagements for your workforce.
And just on that, if people watching this either live or subsequently on YouTube, if you've got goods or services, whether it's digital assets or whether it's shares or whatever it might be, anything in between, put out on social media, #Cardiff Together, and we will then repost and so on and spread the word, because you never know. Yours was a happenstance of someone you happen to talk to. There'll be many happenstances which don't meet up, whereas that's one of the great things about media. We can actually use those channels. I want to give a slightly contrarian point, which isn't just about money, it's about services as well. How do you respond to companies who quite legitimately might say along these lines, look, after this year, we can only focus on protecting our business and our teams and not on helping charities? Why should they support you? Not individually, but the charities per se.
If that's an appropriate response to the business, then that's the appropriate response. I don't think any business should feel obligated or guilted into supporting a charity. Fundraisers have got the thickest of skins on the planet. I don't know anybody alive who's got a thicker skin than a fundraiser, because people say no to us all the time, and quite often no means either not now, or not this, or not that. It might be that you're asking for the wrong thing. It may be you've asked for too much money. You maybe you've asked for too little. You might get a better ask if it's a pro bono. So I think this is the benefit of having the conversation with the charity. And if a business says to me, look, I'm really sorry, I can't do it, that's fine. We'll be friendly. We'll keep the conversation open. We'll still send them tweets and bits and bobs, and because at the point at which the business is ready to then step back into the marketplace, and we're here saying, great, so we've kept in touch, we've looked at everything that you're doing, what can we do for you? So I don't think any business should feel guilty or in any way, shape or form if they can't.
I'm sure they're not. They're probably just very sad that they can't, but they've got to get on their own survival or whatever. Another anonymous question which we had prior to this was, there are so many charities to support, it can be overwhelming, actually distressing, having to choose. So what might a business use as a steer when deciding to support a particular charity? I mean, of course, not necessarily argue the case, but as a process to decide where money or time or goods might be placed.
I think a lot of organisations now are focusing on the local and the community elements of charity. I think there's genuinely been a shift from supporting the larger UK-wide charities to looking closer to home, to where the business sits, and ensuring that the communities around that area and the customers that it serve, that they would be supporting the charity close to home. I mean, I don't know about you guys, I don't know if you've kind of found that, but people want the local angle. They want the family who live near their area. They want visibility of where their money or their volunteering time or their gifts in kind is going. And I think as local organisations or local arms of organisations, we can provide that. I can't think of the word, the visibility, the clearness of it, transparency.
And I think it's being people, as you say, being able to see the benefit of their work and their support. It's so important. And you can see that with local charities, which is wonderful. I would say that it helps that there is a fit around values as well. That's really important. But also, think about your staff, your customers, your stakeholders, and what's important to them. It usually just works really well then, that there's just that nice synergy and nice fit, that we can all be working together. But very much, I think if you can see the benefit that your donation, that your support is having, it can just make everyone feels so good as well. There is that feel good factor, and that's why we all work in charity as well, is that we get to see the benefit of everyone's efforts and the difference that we make. And the best sector to work in, what can I say?
I guess from a personal point of view, you're also dealing with, whilst there are exactly those joys and seeing the best of people, you're also seeing people in the toughest of circumstances, not specifically you, Liz, but all charities. You've got a very sort of stretched view of humanity. Many of us are operating in the slightly sort of grayer middle. Whereas yours, you've got those polarities, which must be challenging.
And
go on.
I was going to say, I think we can all agree with this one. The people that we support, they still need our support during the pandemic. A terminal illness doesn't stop because there's this terrible virus which is affecting, so many. And it's not to shy away from that. It's just that added layer of complication and challenge that our families are going through in what is, the most terrible time. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Greg. We're all here for the people that we support, and that's what keeps us all going as well, and is so important.
One way or another, you're all also dealing with another, and it'll be a slightly inappropriate word, but another layer of sadness on top of a massive amount of existing sadness regardless. And I'm sure everyone watching this completely commends you and all the charities of Cardiff for the work that you're doing. And and I'd hope that partly as a result of this, but mainly because of what you're doing, that people will come forward with more support, whether that's simply the verbal of the supporting you through social media, or the practical with goods and services, yes, and money. Tell me this as we come towards a closing point here. How are you viewing 2021? Sort of cautious optimism, or simply don't know, or what does the landscape look like for you?
Who's going to jump in?
I think I'll follow all of those under don't know, in which case.
I think you've hit the nail on the head with cautious optimism there, Greg.
Right,
I think
okay.
as fundraisers, naturally, we're very glass half full kind of people. Like I said, obviously, we're very resilient in terms of getting the knockbacks, but generally we're optimistic. And I think, as we've touched on so much in this conversation, this sense of community, I think, will drive us forward and will become a massive part of how a business operates, so they can get so much from it, and so can we, and that's the only way we'll survive. So I think cautiously optimistic. I don't know what everybody else thinks.
I'm slightly guarded today.
Oh,
Mike, I'm afraid you've frozen your guardedness. Can we come back to you in a second and just hope somehow it's cleared in a deeply non-technical way?
I mean, I think, it's the not knowing, it's the changing from one week to the next. Right now we're debating whether we're going to be put into a local lockdown prior to Christmas or after Christmas. And I think we just need to be flexible, resilient, which we are anyway, and have a lot of plan Bs, which is what we're going to do. So, our whole events program was just wiped this year, as I'm sure yours were. But we did actually do a virtual event in May, which we had planned to do prior to coronavirus, where we estimated it'd raise about £10,000. It actually raised 30. So for us, the timing was just great. But I think it's about, and they use this term in the news about education, like blended learning, so a blended approach to what we do as an organisation in terms of events, and the way we work with businesses going forward. I don't vision me going on face-to-face meetings still for a little while yet, so we'll just keep at it, keep doing what we do, get better at it, and adapt to change as it comes.
And Liz, cautious optimism, uncertainty, don't know. Where are you?
I think it's the uncertainty. I think what we do know is that more people will need our services. So that's the certainty that we have. I'm going to give just a little plug to something, because I think it might benefit a few people watching this. City Hospice also provides bereavement counselling services to people in Cardiff, the county of Bridgend, and the southern areas of Rhondda and Hafan. And if people are suffering at this time and they need our support, they can come to us. You don't have to have had a family member who has been supported by City Hospice. So I just wanted that opportunity to get that in, because there might be some people out there who could genuinely do with our support at this time. But yeah, there will be more people who need our support. There will be more money to raise, definitely. It is an expensive business, what we do. And so we know that there is a need for that. I think, as Kelly just said, we need to be flexible and adapt as best that we can, and work with people, work in partnership. I think it is the key moving forward. Partnerships, collaboration between other charities, with business, with our supporters is key.
Thank you. So partnerships, collaboration, but what about optimism, Mike, for 2021?
I'm slightly split. I think that because of the economic situation that we're facing as a country, not as a charity, but on a national level, I think there's probably going to be more demand for our services than ever before. And I think that we're going to see a lot of families having a lot of financial difficulties, and there's going to be a squeeze, and particularly areas around housing, it's difficult. So I think we're going to see more people using our services, which means from our point of view as fundraisers, we have to raise more money, and we have to. So yeah, I think it's going to be tricky. I think it's difficult, but I think that what is clear, and I think Liz has hit this nail absolutely on the head, is that when you have difficult times, that's when the innovation and the creativity comes to the fore. And if we're finding new and creative and different and interesting ways to work with business, and I think the message certainly from me, and I think from what I've heard from my charity colleagues today, is very much that we are open to working creatively with business. So don't presume that, don't make any presumptions about how charities are and what charities do. Sit down with us, have a conversation, see if we can actually add some value to your business, because I genuinely believe that when we can add value and we can develop strategic partnerships, that's a win for the business, and it's a win for the organisation, and it's a win for the people who need our service.
That feels like a great point to end it on. You've covered a lot of ground here, but just to pick out a couple of points, the benefits of collaboration, slightly separate to the benefits of money and services, are of itself valuable. The use of technology, just this technology, meaning you can reach out and engage and connect and have value and so on. That sense of innovation, of pivoting to online fundraising models or whatever it might be, some of which may well endure. The increasing need for the services, if that's not the inappropriate word, that you as charities are providing, it will be more complex in 2021 from what you've each been saying. That funding and that support need is absolutely imperative. So, you know, if there are businesses of Cardiff, and yes, everyone is going through a form of travail at the moment, but if there are businesses who can support in any way, please do reach out, because if this pandemic has taught us anything, it's that we are actually more connected than we had previously realised, and that with lockdown making everything local, there's a greater need for the businesses, organisations and charities of Cardiff and media companies of Cardiff to work together in support of the brilliant work which is being done. Personally, I found this a whole variety of things, but including heartwarming. I think the positivity that's come through from you, the resilience, the determination, optimism, however guarded, but determination, I think, has been extremely impressive. And I, hope you don't mind me saying that, but it's been bloody great. So thank you very much to our speakers, Claire, Kelly, Liz, and Mike. Thank you very much indeed. To those watching now, thank you for your time today and questions, and thank you for your support for us as a business, for all the charities here as well, in this weirdest of years where lives have been changed utterly. Good luck to all of you, all of us, in the coming months. And from Cardiff Life, please do have yourself a merry, merry Christmas somehow. This has been a Media Clash production, and this has been a very, very special Cardiff Life Business Club. Cardiff together. Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Cheers. Bye-bye.